Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 18th, 2012 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my privilege to call this meeting to order. There are copies of our agenda on both sides of the room tonight. If you would like to follow along with our proceedings this evening, I would invite you to please pick one up and do so. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on our agenda tonight, as well as items that are not on our agenda. And I will tell you that having not met last week, we have a jam-packed agenda for you tonight. In fact, we have items under every single heading on our agenda tonight, which is something I don't think we've seen in at least my memory. Well, maybe not within my memory, but not recently in any event. So, sit down, strap yourself in. We're going to have a action-packed agenda tonight. Now, first of all, it is our custom to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this point in time, I would ask that everyone please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terrific. And now, I'd like to ask our fine village clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Rankin? Here. Commissioner Barnett? Commissioner Neustadt?
Here.
Commissioner Durkin?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner Schnell? Here. Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. And that brings us to item 2 on our agenda, which is the roll call. But you know what? Let's go do the minutes first. Let's get that out of the way. We're going to jump ahead, a little executive privilege here. Let's go to approval of minutes from prior council meetings. We have one set of minutes to approve tonight, and those are our council meeting minutes from our September 4th, 2012 meeting. Are there any questions or comments or corrections from any members of the council with respect to those minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Those minutes are approved. Now we'll come to a couple of very special parts of the meeting tonight. We have some proclamations to read and give out, and then we have something that is particularly rewarding to do, and that is to recognize some long-serving and very dedicated volunteers within our community for their service on our boards and commissions. We're going to save the best for last and do the proclamations first. So I'd first like to read a proclamation that is in celebration of American Pharmacist Month here in the village of Downers Grove. And as you might notice, there are some folks here in our audience this evening who are wearing white jackets, and that is by no accident. They are pharmacy students from our own Midwestern University here in Downers Grove, and they are here along with with their dean and other members of the university. We welcome you here tonight. We're glad to have you. We are very proud, as we comment quite frequently, on having Midwestern University here in Downers Grove. Midwestern University is a great corporate partner. Dr. Geppinger is a great member of our community, and we work very closely together to improve pretty much the community as it supports both the village as well as the university. So welcome and thank you for being here tonight. Allow me to read this proclamation. At some point in time I'm going to run out of air because I have a whole stack of proclamations here, but let me read this proclamation, and I'd like to invite you up, led by Steve, if you would please, to receive the proclamation after it's been read. So, without further ado, whereas pharmacy is one of the oldest of the health professions concerned with the health and well-being of all people, and whereas pharmacists are specifically educated with a focus and level of expertise on medication therapy that exceeds that of other healthcare providers, and are ideally suited to work collaboratively with other healthcare providers and patients to improve medication use and outcomes by providing services through medication therapy management. And whereas Midwestern University Chicago College of Pharmacy graduates approximately 200 qualified pharmacists yearly who go on to then enter the healthcare system to practice patient-centered care. And whereas the American Pharmacists Association and the Illinois Pharmacists Association have declared October as American Pharmacist Month with the theme, Your Medicines, Know Your Pharmacist. I like that. It's very catchy. Now, therefore, I, Martin T. Tully, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby declare October 2012, you guys don't just get a day, you get the entire month. October 2012 is American Pharmacist Month in the Village of Downers Grove, and urge all citizens to acknowledge the valuable services of pharmacists to provide safe, affordable, and beneficial pharmaceutical care services and products to all citizens. So, Steve, if you would bring your colleagues down front, I'd be happy to present the proclamation to you. You have a nice three-tiered effect here, so feel free to use the risers. That's right, it's only dress rehearsal, don't worry, we'll get it right. The second time. Feel free to come on down. I know, that's such a handsome looking group, I don't want to even get in there and mix that up. But let me bring this up. Oh, that's right, television. Congratulations. I'd like to present this to all of you. Let's give them a round of applause. You'll get used to this when you're all famous. Best of luck. Nice to meet you. Good to see you. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Love the banner. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Thank you very much. Good luck. Best wishes. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. Best of luck. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. After you. Should stay down here.
I know. Need a microphone, remote microphone.
I should have asked, I don't know if anyone wanted to make a comment before you leave. No obligation.
Steve already exited out.
All right, well, the spokesperson's gone, so Stephen left the building. But thank you very much once again for being here.
Oh, he's coming back.
Never want to miss an opportunity. Steve, please introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening. My name is Steven Sadelsky. I'm a student pharmacist in my third year at Midwestern University Chicago College of Pharmacy. We really wanted to thank you for making this proclamation. Pharmacists are the medication experts. As we all know, student pharmacists and pharmacists, medications don't work in people who don't take them. The medications don't work well in patients who don't take them properly. We are proud to study and continue our education in a village that recognizes the importance of pharmacists play in the healthcare profession. Thank you again, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Sadowski. And best wishes to the class of 2014. Thank you for being here. All right, moving on to something also very important. This is a proclamation in support of Constitution Week. And hopefully Ms. Wanschneider is here tonight to receive this. Thank you very much. Sorry, I didn't see you behind Mr. Kozlowski. I'll read the proclamation and invite you to please come down and accept the proclamation. Whereas September 17, 2012 marks the 225th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the 1787 Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now therefore, I, Martin T. Tully, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17 through 23, 2012, to be Constitution Week in the Village of Downers Grove, and urge all our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution, that the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by diligently protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. Dated this 18th day of September 2012 at Downers Grove, Illinois. Ms. Wanschneider, if you'd please come up, I'd be happy to present this to you. And this time I'll invite you in advance if you'd like to make some remarks.
Just one.
That way I won't forget.
Thank you.
Good to see you. That's yours.
We'd just like to say that
Oh,
our...
hold on. Let's get a photo and then we'll take it to the podium so the folks at home can hear it,
Oh,
okay?
okay. All righty.
All right, thank you. Now, if you wouldn't mind going to the microphone, that way everyone at home will not miss a word.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, our Constitution is the oldest Constitution still in active use in the world today. and as the basic document of the Republic which protects the individual liberties of all citizens through written law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being here and for accepting the proclamation. Proclamation number 3. And this one isn't directed at anyone, so I don't want to hear any comments afterwards. This proclamation is in support of No Text on Board Pledge Day. Whereas the Village of Downers Grove holds the health and safety of its young adults as a chief concern, and whereas text messaging is the main mode of communication for most American teenagers, with half of all teens sending between 21 and 70 texts a day. We need to start a new business unit. Whereas texting takes one's eyes off the road for an average of 5 seconds, and whereas an AT&T survey revealed that 43% of American teenage drivers admitted to texting while driving, even though 97% know it's dangerous. I'm worried about the 3% that don't think it's dangerous. Whereas a recent study showed that those who send text messages while driving are 23 times more likely to crash, and whereas a driver that sends a text message while driving not only jeopardizes his or her safety, but also the safety of passengers, pedestrians, and other drivers. Now therefore, I, Martin T. Tully, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, do hereby proclaim September 19th, 2012 as No Text on Board Pledge Day in the Village of Downers Grove, and encourage all drivers of all ages to take the pledge to never text and drive again. And since no one is texting, I don't have to present this to anyone. And the fourth proclamation I'll come to in a moment, but we need to properly introduce it. And let me set it up first, and then I'm going to ask Mary Pratt to please come down in a moment while she's making her way up here. I hinted earlier that one of the privileges we have tonight is recognizing the service of dedicated volunteers who serve on our boards and commissions. As many of you know, we have a number of boards and commissions here in the Village of Downers Grove that over the years a number of residents have served on. They do so for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to give back to the community, because as we all know, the pay is pretty poor. The pay is nothing. And some might say that it might be more grief than anything else, but I can't stress the importance of the boards and commissions that we have in our community, whether they run from technology to land use boards to human services to community grants or community events. All of our boards and commissions are very important because we get direct input from residents who have oftentimes expertise, experience, and most importantly, passion with respect to the topic of their board and commission. And they act as the sounding boards in our community, hear different matters, consider different things, and make recommendations to this village council. And while we may not always agree with the recommendations made by our boards and commissions, we always greatly appreciate and greatly respect their service and the hard work and effort that was put forth to bring a recommendation to this board. And it would make our jobs incredibly more difficult to not have the benefit of their service, time, and dedication to this community. So periodically, we not only celebrate new members of our boards and commissions, but we also celebrate those who have served and are going to be taking a break. Because one of the things that we do have here in the village are lots of people who are talented and passionate about giving back to the community. And so we try to make the positions on the boards and commissions, which are finite, available to as many people as possible. And we want to recognize the service of those who have served so capably and with such dedication on our boards and commissions. And we have one particular outstanding example tonight, but I will leave you with that cliffhanger and introduce Mary Pratt. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. And for all the reasons you just explained, we do want to recognize several citizens who have volunteered their time and their service and talents for many years on some different boards and commissions. So I wanted to, 4 of them couldn't be here tonight, so I wanted to mention them and acknowledge them. First is Daniel McInerney, who served on the Liquor Commission since 2003. Jeff Rogers, who served on the Human Service Commission since 2007. Scott Isaacson, who served on the Zoning Board of Appeals since 2008. And Michael Duet, who served on the Environmental Concerns Commission since 2009. We have a certificate for each one of them and a little parting gift for each one, and we will make sure that they all receive those. So if we could just take a moment and applaud for those people. Hopefully they're at home and they're able to see this. But we do have one other citizen that we'd like to recognize, and I'd like to turn that distinction back over to you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I have a feeling that some of my colleagues will want to make some comments as well. We have a very special guest here tonight, and that's Mr. Alan Gyrick. Alan, as almost anyone who's been in Downers Grove for more than 10 minutes knows, is and has been synonymous with our Plan Commission. Alan served on the Plan Commission for over 2 decades, which is an accomplishment by any measure. And for a good measure of that, more than 10 years, Alan served as the chair of our Plan Commission, which is also no small deed. I would hazard to say that probably, if you were to measure it, more people, more residents, more involved and concerned individuals have attended Plan Commission meetings over the years than Village Council meetings, probably by far. I talked a moment ago about how boards and commissions can serve as sounding boards. Well, that one in particular, being one of our most important land use boards, is probably the biggest sounding board that there is. That commission, and Alan in particular, has seen an awful lot of issues come through this community and a wee bit of controversy along the way. I think there have probably been more than one time when these chambers were packed, standing room only. People were standing outside waiting to come in and be heard. And meetings not only went into the wee hours of the night, but then had to be adjourned and resumed at a later point in time. And through all that, Alan and his colleagues maintained a perfect temperament, made sure that all the issues were heard, made sure that all those who wanted to speak were heard, and that the various requirements and factors and facts and issues were all properly weighed and considered before that board then collaborated and came to some sort of a recommendation to this board. And again, while the Village Council over the years has not always agreed with the recommendations of the Plan Commission, we have always greatly respected and greatly appreciated the time and effort that goes into making that sausage and presenting it to this board for an ultimate decision. The role of chair of the Plan Commission is a particularly difficult one because over the years, the role of a Plan Commission in most communities has become increasingly more formalistic and formal, with more and more rules to be followed in order to follow proper procedure. And it's not easy to run a meeting with 7 people, much less with perhaps 50 or 60 people, all of them at various degrees of irritation, who want to come to the podium and speak their mind about something that has obviously brought them out of their homes and down to Village Hall in order to comment on some rezoning or lot split or a project that's being proposed. So to be able to handle that influx of opinion and to be able to coordinate the collaboration amongst colleagues on that board is no small task, and Alan has done that for a very long time with incredible distinction and competence. And for that, we greatly appreciate his service, and I think this is a very well-deserved retirement. No one should be asked to have given as much to this community as Alan has, and yet he has always been willing to do so and would continue to be willing to do so if someone didn't stop him, because that's the kind of volunteer and dedicated citizen Alan is. And so we're very glad to have you here, and we do have a proclamation that we'll read at the end, but I want to give my colleagues an opportunity to perhaps comment on Alan's service, because our appreciation is deeply heartfelt, and we wanted to make sure that your exceptional service to this community was properly recognized. And we're going to have a few more bells and whistles here in a minute, but let me just open it up to see if, as I'm sure some of my colleagues probably want to share a word or two. Commissioner Schnell.
I will, since I've actually known Alan for a while. We won't say how long, but we've known each other for 22 years, I guess it is, since I interviewed initially for the Planning Commission. I really want to thank Alan for his dedicated service over the many, many years that he served on the Planning Commission. It's not an easy job, and one of the things I've always heard about Alan from residents is the fact that he always listened. He always really was attentive to what residents were saying. And he was a collaborator. He really tried to get the Planning Commission to build consensus on issues, to talk through the issues, to let people who were in the audience understand the reasoning behind why the Planning Commission was making the decision that they were. And I think because of those, because the way he handled himself in those meetings, a lot of very heated and hot issues became diffused. And I think people walked away from the Planning Commission meeting saying, you know what, I really don't agree with them, but I think we had a fair shake. In the end, they listened to us. And a lot of that is really due to the fact that Alan was a great chair. He had the ability to really make people feel comfortable getting to a podium, talking about issues that many people come to a Planning Commission meeting and they're scared stiff about coming before a microphone, giving their name, similar to council meetings, giving their name and address, and now that it's become much more formal, almost like you're at a court. And Alan's just done an outstanding job of making our residents feel good about themselves, making them feel good about the process, and making them feel good about the village of Downers Grove. So I really want to thank you for your years of service to the community. You kind of grew with the Planning Commission, and I think you grew well together. So thank you very much for your years of service.
Well said. Commissioner Newstead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. It's a pleasure to see you tonight, and thank you for your service. But I really want to say thanks to your family as well for giving us all those years of your time. We know, and we think we're here often on Tuesday nights, but we know, as the mayor said, that your meetings were often the beginning point for the conversation, and they went longer than ours do most days. So thank you for all of your extra work and your incredible volunteerism for our village. And to echo what Commissioner Schnell said, every time that I would speak with a petitioner that went before you and your group on the Planning Commission, they always had such pleasant and nice things to say about the way that you ran a meeting, the way that you welcomed them to the podium and welcomed them and put them at ease in a kind of an uneasy situation for some folks. So just a big heartfelt thank you to you and your family for all of your dedicated work for our village. Thank you.
Well said. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Alan, I'd like to thank you as well for your long service. You've done a great job. It's a tough job. In addition to what the mayor described, handling meetings and chairing them, you were also on the comprehensive, helped with the comprehensive plan, other plans that you've been involved. So it isn't just, reading a packet and showing up at a meeting and making decisions. There's a lot of extra work and extra time involved, and that's much appreciated as well. I'm sure you'll still be involved in village matters. I don't think you're the type that will just walk away, and we always look forward to your input. I look forward to your input as well.
And we know where you live.
Well, we'll be rezoning that very shortly. But anyway, thank you so much, and as Commissioner Newstead said, thank your family too for all the sacrifices everybody makes to contribute to the village. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, but more importantly, I just want to thank you for making Downers Grove a better place today than it was, in my opinion, when you first started 25 years ago, or 22 years ago. It's not easy to take those votes and really sit back and analyze what everybody says and then really decide and cast your vote, especially when it's not a popular one. And everything you've done, from what I've heard and echo what my colleagues have said, have been in the best interest of our village, and I really want to thank you for that, because I think Downers Grove today is a much better community than it was when you first started, because we do have all the documents in place, the comprehensive plan, but we also have a vision, and the vision is made up by all the people who volunteer, and the residents and non-residents, and that means a lot. And to the family, that to be gone all those hours and all those that time away studying and reviewing, it does take away from family parties, I'm sure, and events that you want to go to, because like Commissioner Newstead said, and we'll all echo, there are things that we have to sacrifice to serve, but with that, I thank you for that.
Thank you. And we do want to celebrate your service and extend our appreciation. I actually was reminded of a time when I believe before I knew what I was doing, and some would say I still don't know what I'm doing, was a resident in a different part of the town at that point in time. There was a project that was being proposed in what's now the Highland Landmark area. It was a little controversial at the time, and I remember the residents of Orchard Brook and Innisbrook and Mistwood were all up in arms about the project. And we put together a group, and we all came down here, and we had the buttons on, things that we've seen up here before, and Alan's seen many times. And somebody had tagged me to speak to a particular issue, because even back then we figured out it'd be better to have a spokesperson and not have the same people say the same thing over and over again. And I remember getting up and making my point, and it soon dawned on me that the point was probably way out of line. And you could have easily called me on it, but as a example of making sure that everyone was welcome and felt like they were heard and that their voices counted. You nevertheless were very interested in what was said by myself and everyone that night. And even though that my comment was probably way out of line and you should have used this and told me to sit down, that was not the kind of chair that you were. You were very open, inclusive, and I think everyone, whether they were happy with the result of the Plan Commission vote, all felt that they had participated in their local government, which has more value than anything that I can measure. I'll also point out a more practical purpose of the chair, and that is to make sure that the council and the staff have a good record of what happened, and that the evidence has come in, and that the comments of the different participants, stakeholders, have all been properly recorded, because as we know nowadays more than ever before, that is very important. So without further ado, I'd like to read this proclamation and come down and present it to you, Alan, and then I'd like to put you on the spot for a moment and invite you to the podium to say a few things perhaps over the last 22 years you haven't been able to say. So what was that too bottled up? While I'm reading this, you can think about that. Whereas Alan Gyrick has served the Village of Downers Grove diligently and conscientiously as a member and chair of the Plan Commission. And whereas Alan was appointed to the Plan Commission in 1991 and has served as chair since appointment in 1993. Whereas Alan has given unselfishly of his time and effort in the performance of his duties. Whereas it is fitting that his contributions to the village be recognized and appreciated. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Downers Grove wishes to acknowledge the dedication, leadership, and commitment of Alan Gyrick and hereby express our gratitude and appreciation as well as that of the village for the services rendered by Alan Gyrick. We invite all citizens to join us in saluting Alan and offering best wishes.
Thank you, everyone. This is actually a bit odd because I'm used to that microphone. But I might get used to this one, so you may not be done with me. No, I'll be brief because I know you have a lot of things tonight, but a lot of emotion for me. I have to start by thanking my wife for her patience, her support, her understanding. We kind of had a little thing we would do when I'd be leaving for a meeting, and she'd say, late night tonight? And I'd always guess based on what the staff would say. Never got it right. And so I'd come home at midnight, and there'd be a little note saying, wrong again, ha-ha, went to bed. But thank you, sweetie. Love you. I know you're thanking me, but I want to thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the trust and faith you had in me. I took it very seriously. It was a chance to make Downers Grove the best village in Chicago. And it was something I took seriously, and thank you. I mean, it's been professionally one of the most rewarding things I've done in my whole life. And I know when we talked, Martin, he said, you know, you've been doing this for a long time. I don't know if you knew, it was 21 years. And 19 as the chairman, and probably 600-700 public hearings. And I said, well, I'll do another 21 years. And half kidding, only half. Have to balance it with my bride and work it with her. It's been a great ride and wonderful to do. And again, my heart is still in it, and so I'm glad you know where I live. Had some time to reflect, and Actually, I had thoughts prepared on everything you said, so I'm not going to repeat it because you've said it better than I. But of all the things, when I think of what we accomplished, the collaboration, I would take personally as the greatest accomplishment. You may not have noticed, but over the 19 years as chairman, you got a tremendous number of O votes from us. 7-0, 8-0, once in a while 0-5, not too often. But that's because, to me, the activity of the commission was to work hard, to collaborate, to reach consensus, to respectfully hear the differing opinions, to relate to the concerns, try to address all of these things and bring you and the village the best possible development. So we stayed pretty late, but at the end we were able to get through the issues, solve the problems, and get to an 0, 7-0, 8-0, 9-0, which I thought was a great accomplishment. That and the respect which, for all the citizens, for everyone, which you identified. So it has been a wonderful ride, and I won't delay my comments tonight, but goodbye has a bit of finality to it, so I'm not going to say goodbye to you, but I will wish you a good evening, and we'll hope that our paths can cross again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, we do have some items for you. The first one, we have some gifts, I will call them. The first one is picking up in your comment that it's not goodbye. It's a certificate of appreciation marking your service. But it's merely a milestone. As I said, we know where you live, and you're not going anywhere. So thank you for that. The next gift, I'll let you be surprised. Those are some mementos that I'm sure you'll enjoy, again, on behalf of the village. Thank you. A small token of our appreciation. The next gift is a gavel, because of course, Alan, in our hearts and in our minds, you'll always be the chair. So that's for you. And the last gift that we have is not directed to you at all. It's directed to your family. Our gift to you is we're giving him back. Thank you for lending him to us for so long. Thank you very much. Congratulations. I can tell you from personal experience that even though you think you're retired, not necessarily so. So thank you again very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
When was the last time you left the chambers before midnight? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
That then brings us to item 4 on our agenda. Everything pales in comparison now. Public comments, which are obviously always very important. Section 4 of our agenda is devoted to comments of a general nature with respect to items that are not appearing on our agenda tonight. If any members of our audience have comments of a general nature with respect to items not appearing on our agenda, please come down to the podium, give us your name and address, and we would love to hear from you. Good evening.
Good evening. Stacy Solomon, 4945 Highland. And you guys are busy tonight, so I will try to make this brief. I wanted to come here tonight to applaud the village's decision to implement a stormwater utility. So I know I may be one of the few residents who actually comes here to thank you for deciding to do that. I know it's not an easy decision to implement a fee, but I do understand that that means that the village is serious about controlling storm water runoff and its associated impact on property and water quality. And I know in order to do that effectively, it requires some sort of funding structure to support that goal. I also wanted to add that in the past few weeks, it seems that everywhere I go in the environmental energy planning communities, people are talking about Downers Grove. So some of the talk is about our use of alternative fuels, but it's mostly about water. And this is from District 99's new parking lot to Grove Street, to the use of anti-salt practices, to the creation of stormwater utility. Downers Grove is being recognized as a leader in addressing stormwater issues. So of course, as a resident, this makes me really happy to hear this. So I want to tie this directly into why I'm here tonight, and I wanted to share with you a report from Sierra Club's River Monitoring Program. And this report is a summary of over 10 years of monitoring and testing the water quality of Salt Creek, the east and west the branches of the DuPage River. And I wanted to bring to the attention of the village that the section of the St. Joseph's Creek that runs through Downers Grove is testing as one of the healthiest bodies of water in the DuPage County. So while this is great, it still is testing high for non-point source pollution from stormwater runoff. And so I think that this report complements nicely what Downers Grove is doing well, but also brings attention to the need to better manage our stormwater runoff. So this report has already been distributed to various members of the county board, the Forest Preserve District, other municipalities and civic organizations, and I wanted to leave a couple copies for you guys as well, for the village council and interested staff members. Basically, that's it. I just wanted to thank you for letting me address the council and also for your leadership in developing some long-term strategies for better water management. I don't know who wants these. All right, thank you.
Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other questions or comments of a general nature from any members of our audience? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Yeah, my wife and I went to the art festival a couple of weeks ago, and on our way home, we rested at a bench on Burlington and Main Street. And while there, I observed the strange right turn light, green turn light on the Main Street. And I just wonder what is going on with that thing. It seems to me that that light is not long enough. It seems to me it could be longer. And because you get 4 cars in a row and they can't get through. And that's a long light. So that, I know I asked about this a couple years ago, and supposedly they were going to make a study of that. But I don't see any results. Thank you.
We did have that conversation with Mr. Falish a couple of years ago. We actually applied for a grant to rework the timing of that intersection, which is actually tied into the railroad crossing, telemetry, and other signals in the area. Unfortunately, we did not get that grant to this point. We'll continue to pursue grant funding, and it's on our radar screen for future improvements. We agree we can do better at some of the signal timing in the downtown.
Oh, I see. One of the problems might be that they're afraid they might get too much traffic if the gates go down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Falish. And thank you for that answer, Mr. Fieldman. Any other questions or comments of a general nature with respect to items not appearing on our agenda tonight? Hearing none, it brings us to item 5 on our agenda, public hearings. And we not only have one, we have 2 public hearings tonight. It is a jam-packed agenda. The first public hearing is with respect to a community development block grant application. The second public hearing is with respect to a proposed special service area number 4. I will begin with the community development block grant application. This public hearing will please come to order. This public hearing has been called by the Village Council to consider submittal of applications to the DuPage County Community Development Commission for block grant funding for the Francisco Avenue, Drendel Road, and Granville Avenue water main loop. Notice of this hearing was published in the Downers Grove Reporter on August 29, 2012. The procedures for tonight's meeting will be as follows. First, there will be a presentation by Village Manager David Fieldman for the Village of Downers Grove, who will present information related to this application. Second, we will entertain any questions or comments from any members of the Village Council. Next, we will entertain any questions or comments from members of the public. These may be either written or oral statements, as well as any other petitions or documents or information or tweets or texts or anything else that you may have handy. I hope I didn't destroy the legality of the public hearing by saying it. Fourth, we will then adjourn the hearing. At the hearing, witnesses will not be sworn, and a verbatim written transcript of the statements or testimony given at the hearing will not be prepared. However, a recording of the procedures will be made on village equipment and retained until the minutes of the hearing have been prepared and approved by the Village Council. So with that introduction, I turn the matter over to Village Manager David Fieldman for the presentation.
And I will immediately turn it over to Andy Sikich, Assistant Director of Public Works, for the presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Do we have a slide? No slide. Okay. The area we're talking about is one of the recently annexed areas off of Burlington in the Francisco, Drendel, and Granville area. That area is currently not served by village water. They're served by private wells. And should any of those wells fail, now that they're annexed into the village, they would not be allowed to re-drill those wells. So at the time of annexation, it was discussed that water mains would be constructed in this neighborhood. We are asking your permission or support of a grant application for a community development block grant for approximately 40% of the funding for this project, which, if successful, would take place next year. I'll keep it brief unless anyone has any questions.
And just to add that it's federal funding through the Community Development Block Grant Program, so if we don't take advantage of this grant, somebody else will. It's competitive on a national level, so we again seek your permission to submit this application.
Thank you for that presentation. Any questions or comments from members of the Village Council with respect to this application? I just had one, and that is the funds, if we were successful in obtaining the grant, would be limited to this area?
That is correct, limited to this area and for this specific project.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this block grant application? Hearing none, any final questions or comments from the Village Council? I know Commissioner Durkin's been noodling on one.
No, I have no comments.
All right, in which case, I will then adjourn this public hearing. It brings us to public hearing number 2, with respect to proposed special service area number 4. I will now call the second public hearing to order. This public hearing has been called by the Village Council to consider the formation of special service area number 4 and the levy of taxes affecting that area. The approximate street locations for the proposed special service area number 4 are Devane Lane and Lynn Grummer Court. An accurate map of said territory is on file in the office of the village clerk and is available for public inspection. Notice of this hearing, as always, was published in the Downers Grove Reporter, and a certificate of publication is made a part of these proceedings. The procedures for this public hearing will be hauntingly similar to the ones that were in place for the prior public hearing. First, there will be a presentation by Manager Fieldman giving an overview of the proposed special service area. Next, there will be an opportunity for comments, questions by the Village Council. Third, there will be an opportunity for questions or comments by members of the public. There will then be a final opportunity for questions or comments by the Village Council, and then thereafter we will adjourn the public hearing. And once again, there will be no witnesses who will be sworn. There will be no verbatim written transcript of statements or testimony given, but there will be a recording on village equipment that will be retained until minutes of the hearing have been prepared and approved by the Village Council. So with that, once again, turned over to Village Manager Fieldman for the staff presentation. Please.
I'll turn it over to Tom Daberiner, who has presented background information on this item before. Tom.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
This public hearing is a required component in the process of creating a special service area, or SSA. The village is proposing establishment of a special service area number 4 for the Green Acres subdivision, which is shown approximately here. The SSA will serve as a safeguard in the event that the homeowners association that is created cannot or does not maintain the detention area. The SSA will allow the village to levy a special tax on the property owners who are located inside the SSA area for the maintenance of the facility, and the tax would only be levied if the homeowners association defaults on that maintenance and the village is required to step in. The amount would not exceed 3% of the property's equalized assessed value. Notice of the public hearing, as the mayor indicated, was published on August 29th, as well as being mailed to the property owners as required by the state statute. A 60-day objection period will follow tonight and then be placed on the council agenda in a couple of months. You'll recall back in April, in fact, there was a re-subdivision of the property, an affected area of the property, and as shown here, lots 12, 13, and 14 were combined into lots 1 and 2 for the purpose of the redefining the area for the detention area. That is the detention area that we're talking about. The Green Acres subdivision is shown here in this aerial. The aerial shows 4 buildings. There are a few more out there right now. But the subject area would include everything within the blue dashed area. However, excuse me, I spoke incorrectly. The blue dashed area is the subdivision. The red solid line is the proposed SSA area. And those would be the properties that are under single ownership currently and would be subject to the special, or to the tax, should that need to be implemented. I would be happy to try to answer any questions. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Daber. Are there any questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Commissioner Durkin?
Yeah, just one. The 9 lots that are associated with this SSA, are they currently occupied, or are they part of the, owned by the developer?
They're owned by the developer currently. There are some pending COs out there, but so we've really only been dealing with one property owner throughout within that proposed special service area.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Rankin?
So the properties that were owned before Greenscape took ownership of the other properties, they're not included in the homeowners association?
They were not proposed to be included as part of this SSA, and that was part of the proposal from the applicant as well.
Okay.
Any questions or comments from members of the council? Then we'll move to any questions or comments from members of the audience. Any questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to proposed special service area number 4? Hearing none. Any final questions or comments from members of the Village Council? I'll just add that this solution for addressing a potential issue down the road, I welcome and applaud, because we know historically there have been situations where these detention areas have fallen into disrepair and by default fallen into our hands to maintain, and thinking it in advance and planning proactively for that potential eventuality. I think that was an oxymoron, wasn't it? Potential eventuality? Yeah. It's just good planning and good thinking. So I'm glad to see us doing this, anticipating and learning from experience. So I'm glad to see this come before us. And with that, we'll adjourn the public hearings. So both public hearings are now adjourned. We'll return us to our regularly scheduled agenda. Now moving to item number 6, our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Second.
Any questions or comments, any members of the audience with respect to any of the items on the consent agenda this evening? Any questions or comments, any members of the Village Council with respect to the consent agenda? Commissioner Rankin.
I just wanted to make note that it's wonderful that we had 2 projects come under budget, $50,000 approximately of savings, so that's just great news to share. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from members of the council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Kelly?
Aye. The matter passes unanimously. Threw you off there, didn't we? That brings us to item 7, our active agenda. We have 3 items on the active agenda. 7A, do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance approving a plan development amendment to plan development number 18 to allow a second driveway access to 980 75th Street?
Mayor Tully, I move to adopt an ordinance approving a plan development amendment to plan development number 18 to allow a second driveway access to 980 75th Street as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments from any members of the Village Council? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, that matter passes unanimously. It brings us to 7B as in boy. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance to rezone 4634 Roslyn Road from R1 single-family residential to R4 single-family residence as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this item? Any questions or comments from any members of the Village Council? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye, that matter passes unanimously. Brings us to 7C. Do I have a motion to adopt an ordinance amending liquor license classifications as presented?
Mayor Tully, I move to adopt an ordinance amending liquor license classifications as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to this proposal? Any questions or comments from members of the Village Council? I'll just add that once again, this is, I think, proactive planning for things that may happen based on past experience. So I'm making these adjustments to our liquor license classifications, I think makes a lot of sense. So thank you for bringing that forward. That's directed to our village attorney. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Newstead?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Schnell?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. That matter also passes unanimously. That brings us to the end of our active agenda and brings us to our first reading agenda, item 8, which is also known as our workshop agenda. We have 3 matters on our first reading or workshop agenda tonight for presentation and discussion, and there may or may not be action on these items at a future point in time. It's customary to turn over this segment of the meeting to Village Manager Fieldman for presentation.
The first item on tonight's first reading agenda is authorization of the purchase of replacement laptop computers for the police department. And here with additional information on this item is our Deputy Village Manager, Mike Baker.
Thank you. Good evening. This item recommends replacement of police department Toughbook computers according to the village's planned equipment replacement schedule. The computer purchase is under budget, and the prices were obtained through state bid to ensure the most competitive pricing. Staff is available to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of the audience? Questions or comments from members of the Village Council? Commissioner Newstead.
Should have asked this one in advance. What are we doing with the old computers?
We will make an attempt to sell them if there's a market available, and then if not, donate them. But of course, before doing that, we'll make sure they're properly taken care of so there isn't any data or anything to make sure that's addressed as well.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from members of the council? The only question I had, and I also apologize for not bringing this up earlier, but it's not so much on this proposal, which is fine, but more of a sort of a nettlesome issue of the turnover in technology. I mean, obviously, we want to have our staff, and particularly our first responders, have, well, not necessarily always cutting-edge technology, leading-edge technology, so that they can do their jobs appropriate. In order to do that, obviously, it requires a continual reinvestment of dollars. And I don't have an answer to this, but I wonder if, and kudos on coming into our budget, but if there's a way, long-term way, knowing that this is only going to accelerate and expand as technology becomes more and more pervasive in both the fire service and in the police service, what we can do long-term, because obviously these are substantial investments that are only going to continue. And I don't know if there is an answer. It's the same problem that is faced by both the public and private sector. But knowing how innovative this organization is, I just throw that out there.
Well, a lot of our first responders are moving to tablet format. We're becoming more lean and more innovative, and frankly, we're responding in many of the ways that the private sector has and will continue to. So it's really a long-term issue. It's more of an evolution, and you'll see more and more technology evolution in the coming years. So I would assume in a few years we're not looking at Toughbooks. We'll be looking at some sort of tablet as we move forward.
And hopefully with a commensurate reduction in cost.
That is what we're looking for, yes.
All right. Terrific. Well, thank you. And as usual, you're already a step ahead of me. Any other questions or comments? I think I already asked if there were any questions or comments from the audience, but just in case. All right, next item, please.
The next 2 items we'll take together. They are the to authorize purchase of bulk road salt and liquid de-icer for our snow and ice control plan. And here to present information on these items is our Public Works Director, Nan Newland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Dave said, these are 2 items we'll be treating together tonight. The first is a motion requesting the purchase of bulk road salt from Cargill Incorporated for snow and ice control. using the state contract at a cost of $63.24 per ton, which is the same unit price we've paid since the 2009-2010 snow season, for a total not to exceed cost of $318,729.60. The state contract specifies a target amount of salt for each agency each year and a unit cost, and according to the terms of this contract, the village can purchase as little as 3,360 tons of salt at a total cost of $212,486, or as much as 5,040 tons of salt at a cost of $318,730. This amount that we end up purchasing is, of course, based on the kind of season that we experience and the amount of salt we're starting with this year, which we're in very good shape this year. We're starting with about 2,500 tons of salt because of our incredibly mild winter last year. The staff recommends approval of this contract with Cargill Incorporated. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about this contract.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on either one of these items from any members of the audience? Any questions or comments from any members of the Village Council with respect to either item?
This is what we used in the past, right?
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
The last two winters.
Last two?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the organization we've had a great rapport with. When they come and they're delivering, either they come in and deliver it, or we send somebody to unlock the gate.
They've been worked very well with us. It helps reduce our overtime costs because they come when we can be there. They deliver a lot of salt at one time instead of bringing a truckload here or there, so it really reduces our staff time.
And I think that's the point that needs to be brought up to the attention, is that relationship is really grown into the efficiency of our department over there. So hopefully we won't need any salt, you know. But they're saying possible frost tomorrow night or tonight, so who knows?
You don't need salt.
That's all I have. Thank you. Well, I don't want it. My flowers are finally gone. Pluck them away yet. So.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions or comments? Very good, Well, thank you for the presentation. That brings us to the end of our first reading agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were putting them together.
Just a quick note of the anti-icer. We continue to achieve savings and use lower amounts of salt by continuing to use our Geo Melt Liquid De-icer. That's also part of tonight's presentation, but it's the same good news we presented in the last 2 years. So we're happy to answer any questions you have on that as well.
Sorry, I jumped the gun. Any questions or comments from members of the audience? Members of the council?
Is the technology with the application over the years, since this is relatively new, has it gotten better? Is there newer technology to make it more efficient?
This is the 4th year we'll have used de-icer, and it's been continually evolving with different agencies. They're kind of mixing different formulas. We found this worked for us very well last year, and it's easily available, works well with our distribution and mixing with our salt. We continue to look at it every year because there's changes happening all the time. We just had the Snow and Ice Control annual conference up in Milwaukee this spring, and we had staff up there taking a look at with the different vendors and the products. So we'll continue to monitor it and try to get the best deal we can get for the village.
So you don't really see, going into our budget season, you don't really see any additional budget dollars needed for improved technology or equipment to provide this?
No, I don't. We bought some nice small sprayers last winter, which we'll be using this year as well. I think we're pretty well equipped to use the product this year.
Great. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Now that brings us to the end of our workshop agenda.
That's correct.
That brings us to item 9, which is the mayor's report. And of course, the main and only item on the mayor's report tonight is, it's hard to believe that it's been about a whole year since the last town hall meeting that we had with respect to ComEd. And for those of you that have been following this issue, you'll know that due to the extraordinary weather that we experienced last summer, we had some extraordinary outages of electrical service in the community, which was only partially the result of the extraordinary weather. But it really highlighted some of the shortcomings in the reliability of electrical service here in Downers Grove and elsewhere. We grabbed this bull by the horns and put together our own report about what could be improved, met with senior executives at ComEd, and then invited the community to join everyone at the Park District Recreation Center last fall, for a town hall meeting. when everyone had the opportunity to present their views with respect to electrical service in Downers Grove. And I know ComEd could have really used Alan Gyrick at that meeting. The good news is that we did not experience similar weather this summer, thank goodness, and although there were some outages, they weren't nearly of the duration or the scope of last year, but we are nevertheless continuing our commitment to enhancing and maintaining electrical reliability here in Downers Grove, and so we are having the second town hall meeting this Thursday, the 20th of September, also at the Park District Recreation Center located at 4500 Belmont Road at 7 p.m. That recreation center itself was actually the subject of one of Alan's very long meetings. So we continue to be committed to making reliability improvements, and staff has revisited the 2011 reliability report, has updated the outage data, and reported on progress made by ComEd in the last year, and there's been a substantial amount of progress to report and celebrate. But we also have additional recommendations for continued efforts to enhance and maintain the reliability of electrical service here in Downers Grove. The report, the updated report, is now available on the village website. So if you haven't checked it out, there's some light reading for this evening. Village staff will present the findings of the report, in case you haven't read it, at the town hall meeting this Thursday. Again, that's this Thursday, September 20th, from beginning at 7 o'clock p.m. at the Park District Recreation Center in the meeting room down below, I would say in the basement, if you will. Beginning at 7 o'clock, please come out. We'll have a presentation of the report, and there'll be an opportunity for input from both residents, and we have made a particular effort to make sure that we've included our business residents and stakeholders as well, because they are also affected, although in different ways sometimes than residents in terms of the nature of their business. ComEd officials will once again be on site to present their progress since last year, and most importantly, to listen to both resident and business concerns and comments with respect to the reliability of electrical service here in Downers Grove. So we'll look forward to seeing as many residents and business owners as possible at that event. We want to, again, keep this very high on the radar because it's a high priority for our community. So if there's anything that anyone wants to add to that, I think we'll save it all for Thursday. Terrific. Well, that's all I have on the mayor's report. That brings us to item 10, the manager's report. Mr. Fieldman?
Yes, Commissioner Durkin just mentioned that we're coming into budget season, and that is correct. Before this board meets again, the proposed FY13 budget will be published. It's actually going to be published on Friday, September 28th, and we will start a series of at least 8 public meetings where we will consider the FY13 budget, beginning with a Saturday morning workshop, Saturday, October 6th, Fire Station 2 at 8 a.m. All this information will be published on the village website. So again, the proposed FY13 budget will be published on September 28th. That's all we have tonight.
Terrific. Thank you very much. I can see that Commissioner Rankin is just bouncing up and down her seat waiting for budget season. It brings us to item calculator. It brings us to item 11, attorney's report.
I have no report tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
No report tonight. Oh, that was the only thing we didn't have.
Yeah, I blew it.
Very good. It brings us to item 12, council member reports and new business. Commissioner Durkin, would you like to lead us off?
I will defer to Commissioner Newstead.
Fair enough. Commissioner Schnell?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Waldeck?
I have several items, Mayor. First off, this is full disclosure for my fellow council members, and anybody who tried to come to our meeting last week found out that we weren't here. Like many people, I found out about this on Friday through an email, and we've canceled meetings before. We've had it done for holidays, maybe day before a holiday. I don't know if we ever canceled one for weather. I know we tried, or we talked about it. I don't know if we actually did it. I even suggested one time that we cancel meetings on election days, because that occurs on Tuesdays. And in the past, after a number of years here, noticing whether it's a national election or local election, sometimes some people's heads are not quite in the game because they have other plans. And I know the village manager tries to adjust the agenda accordingly. But anyway, when I was kind of surprised by the fact that we didn't have a meeting because there was a lack of agenda. So I looked it up, and I talked to the village manager on Friday. And I said, hey, you know, if you look at our village code, council meetings, it says Section 2A, regular meetings of the council shall be held the first, second, and third Tuesdays of each month at the hour 7 in the Downers Grove Village Hall. Any or maybe cancel any legal holiday shall be canceled or rescheduled. But it says shall, so it seems like an imperative and not really optional. So I thought, well, okay, you know, that's one thing, that's an easy fix. And then if I dropped out of Rule 6, it says order of business. The manager or the manager's designee shall establish, submit an agenda for each council meeting. In the absence of a written agenda, the presiding officer meeting shall establish the order of business. The village clerk shall post or otherwise provide notice of agenda or as required under the Illinois Open Meetings Act. There's a lot of shells, a lot of imperatives in there. And obviously we had no meeting. The village manager did not establish an agenda. So we got some fixing to do. So I asked him to review the ordinances with the village attorney and fix it. And also how the meeting was canceled was also a concern of mine, because the village manager and the mayor decided that we needed to cancel the meeting. And history tells us that it's not always a good idea for the executive branch of government to cancel public meetings. And I realize we're not a parliament or a Duma, but you know, there have been some instances in the past where it might have been politically advantageous, or something going on where a meeting might be canceled and maybe it shouldn't be. So I would ask that we check into a reasonable process for canceling those meetings. Also, had the rest of the council decided that we wanted to have a meeting anyway, and let's say 4 of us showed up, we would have to pick a presiding officer, and that presiding officer would have to present an order of business or an agenda. And what would happen is the agenda would be set, and then according to the ordinance, it has to be given to the village clerk for publication according to the Open Meetings Act, which is 48 hours. So therefore, even though 4 of us showed up, we still couldn't have a meeting because you got to publish it. So there's a little process situation that we should look at. And I submit that. That was my conversation with the village manager, and I hope you all agree that we should at least look at that situation. And now for new business, there's been an ongoing situation, publication of a concern by the residents over a number of years, and it has to do with the homeless or street people and alcohol. And it's been a long time concern. And so there was a suggestion by a resident that we look at having a 6-pack limitation or a 6-pack requirement or a single service on the sale of alcohol. And the idea being to make it more difficult for certain people to purchase alcohol and consume it on Panhandle, and it should be easier on the businesses, you know, because they're not going out buying a can of beer, let's say, and then panhandling and going back into the same store. So what I would like to recommend I'd ask the council to do is to turn this over to the Liquor Commission for further study, see if it's something we can do, the effects that it might have on business, because I know there's certain, what do you call them, high-priced designer beers or beverages, but I'm sure that other communities have such a law that maybe it should be discussed in the Liquor Commission. And I thank the residents who brought that up. I don't know, any thoughts on that, or would you rather think about it a while for the next meeting? I don't know. We're not doing head nods anymore.
Well, I would say your last reference to like the higher priced beers like Chimay or whatever, those are $10 for one bottle. So a place like Lemon Tree sells some of those luxury beers. And I don't know if you're limiting that it has to be a six-pack, if that's going to create an issue.
Well, I'm not proposing the exact language, but that's really not the intent, and I think that would be for the Liquor Commission to discuss, because we're really not trying to eliminate sale of those particular types of things, but we are trying to handle a alcoholic street people type of problem.
First, we've got to classify who we're talking about, which customers, how they're purchasing, where they're purchasing. A lot of the folks that have been talked about in the last few weeks aren't necessarily homeless or street people. They are our residents who leave their homes to go buy alcohol. It's not the alcohol, it's the drinker that gets us into these problems. And I think someone's Busch Light Draft might be a designer beer versus a Chimay, and that's $1.29 versus a $10 can of beer versus a bottle of beer. So I think there's a lot of conversation to be had there, but there's bigger issues at hand about enforcement, about residents, non-residents using our parks and our facilities and being on our streets in an inappropriate manner. If it's a six-pack, if it's a single can of beer, we're always going to have folks that are abusing alcohol, drugs, and whatever else there may be out there. So I'm all for always looking at more information. Commissioner Waldeck says he's sure there's other communities that have these type of ordinances. If he has any information on those other communities, that'd be great to send out to the council, or perhaps we could invoke the 4-hour rule from staff. I'm not so sure that a change to our ordinance to limit the amount of beer purchased or liquor purchased is going to change. I think we already have those measures in place, and it's always at the discretion of the store owner to sell or not to sell to anybody that comes into their shops. Liquor is a privilege, not a right.
My view on that is I think that we're missing the point with the suggestion. I think that it's an attempt to regulate certain behavior in a remote way that doesn't get at the real issue and overly regulates a whole bunch of people that I think one would admit aren't engaging the behavior that is attempted to be regulated. I don't think it's a liquor issue at all, because we were talking about that and we would ban all kinds of things. We had a proclamation earlier tonight about texting and driving. How serious that is as a factor in causing crashes, and yet no one is suggesting that we ban Blackberries or cell phones, because it's not the device that's the problem. The issue that it's come up has been raised, and I think it is something that is obviously a high priority for the village, and discussions have been undertaken with respect to how to address some of the behavior issues that have been pointed out in certain portions of the community. And the key here, I think, is to be firm about one thing, is that we should be tough on the behavior, but easy on people. And I fear that the suggestion that we start regulating who can buy what, where, and sell what starts to regulate people and not behavior. I think if we're going to do anything, we should focus on solutions for how to address some of the behavior issues that are also, by the way, not, as Commissioner Newstead pointed out, attributable to any particular classification or perceived classification of individual, but it's the behavior that can be classified, not the status of the individual, which of course raises all sorts of challenges that I don't think any community on this planet has yet figured out how to solve. So while I don't have any problem as the Liquor Commissioner, perhaps finding out what precedent might exist or what other liquor regulation of this sort may exist, but candidly, I think it misses. I think it's a solution that misses the problem.
To me, this is a very complex issue, and it's not going to be solved just by saying you can only buy a six-pack of beer. As anybody who's ever seen underage drinking, there is always the ability to get what you want in some way, if you really, truly want it. And if there's a six-pack, somebody could buy it and spread it among 6 people or whatever. I mean, it's much more complex than this. And I think if we are to look at anything, we might want to look at how other communities, as the mayor said, is dealing with the behavior and the problems that behavior causes in the community. There may be solutions out there that we do not know presently exist in other communities, but you can't really just single out any one group or any one person because of problems. I think you really need to get to the root of the issue and try to address that. And I know that our police department has been trying to do that, but there may be ways out there that other communities are dealing with it that we may also learn from. So I think if we're going to spend any time at all, from my perspective, I would rather look at what other communities are doing to kind of curb the behavior and make the community a safer place for everybody.
And just to pick up on that, let's put it into a different context. Oftentimes you'll hear municipalities celebrate, if you will, or at least acknowledge the hard work of their police force, whether it's Naperville or Downers Grove or Lisle, whoever it is, in terms of how many DUI arrests they made within their community. And that is viewed widely as, well, that's good, solid police and law enforcement by the community. But someone could also say, well, my goodness, with all those DUI arrests, we ought to ban liquor in town because clearly people are drinking and driving. And again, I think it's a solution that misses the issue. So the fact that maybe there's a few more things in the police blotter on the patch may be actually indicative of enhanced efforts.
Okay. May I continue?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Which some of your comments actually lead into my second item, which is kind of a continuation of the other. Because over a long period of time, there's always blogs, articles, and unfortunately a lot of incidents that occur it almost seems like a regular basis that this issue crops up every several months, and there's a lot of discussion, writing, a lot of ideas out there. It comes, and then there's no resolution, and then it goes, and it comes back. Even several years ago, before the Advocates became a party, one of their caucuses, they asked each candidate, "What are you going to do about the homeless situation? And the problems downtown, et cetera, et cetera." And then you read in the paper, that maybe I don't know how many, whether it was 1 or 2 kids OD'd in a park bathroom. I don't know if it was 1 or 2, but at least 1.
That was heroin.
Well, I'm moving on to the next, which is actually the issue of homelessness and street people. Homelessness is a much larger problem than what a lot of people are talking about. For example, PADS opens up earlier for families and kids so that the kids can come in, they can have some semblance of a family dinner, and that the kids get to do homework. And what you read behind that is that they are trying to keep their kids in good schools, and they're trying to get them to do their homework so that they can stop this, not wind up in the same situation that they're currently in. So most of the conversation has to do with street people and the problems they might present. Some of those people, percentage-wise, are veterans. We don't know if they are predisposed to problems or whether it's something that they're in service to their country that presented a problem. But I think we owe our veterans a little more than what we're currently giving, rather than treatment. We ought to help them out in some way. So when you see these blogs and that, there's solutions that are presented by residents, and I range them from on a 1 to 10 basis, 1 being basically bop them in the head, throw them in a vehicle, and drop them out of town, which is, I guess you can call that the bum's rush. It's probably illegal, and I don't know of any instance where that happens, but people actually suggest these things. Maybe a 5 would be insisting that our police department constantly arrest and process these people, and there's no thought to the resources that we put into this. There's a lot of time and effort and training and things for our police department, and people don't think of, you process them, you fingerprint them, you court dates and all that stuff, and it generally might not work. And then on the other side of the scale, I've never seen a 10, but an 8.5 is kind of like there but for the grace of God go I type of thing. And so we do know that various entities, and from some of your comments, that various entities are doing things that we may not know of and the public is not aware of. I know our staff is, we've talked about this, staff has done things, I don't know if the police have a policy, but I know they have an approach. The public isn't aware of the approach, the public still sees the problem, and they're not aware of the resources being used. I've heard stories of people who constantly call and they feel like they're annoying the police. They kind of get here we go again. It's not a high priority. And so the public seems to be, some of the public has complained that they're deterred from calling. I get complaints about the library. We hear complaints about what goes on in the parks. Some businesses may be helping or hurting the situation. I also know that several years ago, before the crash, PADS had a conversation with us about approaches that might help get these scary people off the street. And then the crash came and that kind of fell by the wayside. So they did have some thoughts about how to get the scary people off the street, because that seems to be the main concern. So whatever the community is doing, the public perception is that it isn't working to their satisfaction. Maybe the residents need to know what we're doing as a community, and maybe we need to take some constructive suggestions. We need a plan. I think we need a plan that coordinates across all the entities. It's not just a village government problem. It's not just a library problem. It's not just a downtown management problem. So what I'd like for my fellow council members to think of during our break, and it's a call, I'm gonna challenge our village government, our library, our park system, our downtown management, PADS, and the players involved to have some type of a forum, some type of a get-together where we can hear, much like the ComEd problem, where we can hear from the residents as to what their concerns are, if they have any suggestions, and that we continue to meet with these varying groups and come up with, pardon the expression, a comprehensive plan, a comprehensive approach to the problem. We've just, like I say, this is something that crops up all the time. It's been going on for years, and I think we need to get the parties together. I know staff does things, the library staff does things, maybe the park staff does things, and I think this is a little more than just a staff problem. I think it falls a lot on our shoulders to listen and see if there's other communities. This is an age-old problem. It's been going on for centuries all over the world. There's no real solution, but I think we can do better. And that's why I present. I think we can do better. Thanks.
Well, thank you for your comments, Commissioner. The only question I have is, I think there were a lot of heartfelt sentiments were shared there, but I think as Commissioner Stoll picked up, you have to define the problem. And I still don't know exactly what the problem is. I don't think it's fair to characterize anyone as scary. My goodness, I get looks at me in the train station every morning as being very scary, which is why I go back to what is it that is the issue you're trying to solve. If it's a behavioral issue, that's one thing, but I'm not quite sure what the problem is that is being defined here, and I think that's a missing component. And depending on what you define, then it implicates a lot of different resources and a lot of different entities. So one of the things that I shudder about, and this kind of goes back to not meeting, is when government meets about an undefined problem, typically there's no good end to that. And so I have a real issue with that. But maybe you've raised enough food for thought, and hopefully there's been enough ears out there that have listened, and there can be some smarter people that actually define what it is that we're trying to accomplish, or who should accomplish it and how it could be accomplished. Because I'm a little bit, I bristle at the notion of there being scary people.
The term scary did not come from me. It came from...
well, but you repeated it 3 times.
Well, yeah, no, I mentioned it here, but I did not make that up, and it was actually made up for a not-for-profit that was offering to help with a situation of people hanging around the train station and the behavioral problems.
Every morning at 7:20, you'll find me hanging around the train station.
All day long, and the drinking and the...
And during campaign season, you'll find a lot of us hanging around the train station.
The various behavioral problems, yeah, okay, here we go, you know. But it's a problem, and it's not something to make light of.
Well, no, I'm not making light of it, but I mean, what is the it? And I think you have to be really careful when you start generalizing like that. I think it's the biggest problem is you're trying to solve something, you're trying to aim at a target you haven't defined. But anyway, I think you've made a lot of comments. I think we've heard what you've had to say, and
I wasn't asking for any specific action.
I realize that, although I was waiting for some kind of proposal, something specific that this body could take up.
I would like to have some kind of a forum with the various entities that I mentioned to listen to the public, and maybe then define what exactly we could do to improve.
The village council and village staff don't necessarily have to be leading that charge. There have been numerous organizations that could have a forum tomorrow if they wanted to. I don't think, and I give them far more credit to suggest that they are incapable or unwilling to do so unless we challenge them to do so. But again, what is it that they're meeting about, and who should be invited, and what should be discussed? That's what I think is probably a bigger threshold matter. But I hear what you're saying, and what you've said, you're right, is reflected in a lot of different commentary that appears in the blogosphere. But I don't think there's any outcome that we can have to this right now. I'll just go back, and I think you have to focus, and I think you have to and should rightfully focus on behavior, not on people, and not try to classify people, because I think we read a proclamation earlier tonight about the support of the Constitution. But thank you.
And my last item, we've talked about this before, and to preface this is not any reflection on any current members, but I noticed that tomorrow there's a community events meeting expected. It's going to be a community events scheduled, and I have for years complained or brought up the fact that we have a council member, not just on the committee, but as chair and a voting member of a committee. It's the only committee that has such participation.
Not true. Community grants as well.
Okay. But did we get rid of that one?
No.
Or combine it? Okay. My concern isn't recent. It does go back 2 mayors ago, actually, when Mayor Tully was a commissioner on that very same commission. And the reason I was given is basically that there was money involved, and I don't know, it never really made sense to me why that was done, but it was just continued, and now we've taken that concept out of that committee, the money. So I don't think that the reasons that we did it I didn't believe in the original reasons for it, and now that we've taken that reason out, namely the funding, I think it's time that we address the situation. For years, council members could not attend meetings. We're not supposed to attend other board and commission meetings. And if you did manage to sneak in, you weren't supposed to talk. And here we have a committee that is just the opposite. And I just think it's time that we address that situation.
Well, let me pick up on that one real fast, because just if I can crystallize what you're asking about so everyone understands what Commissioner Wolek is referring to. 2 of our boards and commissions, community grants and community events. A number of years ago, there was a proposal that a sitting member of the village council be made a sitting member, and in fact the chair of each of those commissions. The reasoning, which I believe was, and he'll probably shoot me for saying this, I believe the reasoning was advocated by former Commissioner Gilbert, was that both of those boards and commissions made recommendations with respect to the use of funds, of tax dollars. So for example, community grants would receive a percentage of the hotel motel tax, and they made recommendations for how those grants should be given to different organizations after a screening process and an evaluation process. Those recommendations were ultimately approved by the village council, but I believe that the reasoning at the time was we should have a council member there to make sure that there's communication, liaison, and a proper understanding and respect by the board and commission of what the council's budgetary and financial goals were for the village, since it was tax dollars that were being utilized. Now, you can debate the wisdom whether it was a good idea or a bad idea, but that was the reasoning at the time. Community events, somewhat similar in that at the time, community events was in charge of making recommendations for undertaking substantial contracts for Heritage Festival, for the Pro Criterion bike races, for a lot of different events that required a sizable budget. And again, the thinking was, if that board of commissions can make a recommendation on how to utilize tax dollars, there ought to be a village council representative as the chair to make sure that the goals of the village council in terms of the fiscal use of those funds was properly reflected and understood by that board or commission. I fell victim to that policy because I got appointed to be the chair of both of those commissions, and because I didn't have enough meetings in my life already. But it worked out fine. But now the question you're raising, and I think it's a fair question, is given the recession, there currently community grants has no funds, because those funds had to be used to address more important things, or what was perceived to be more important. Community grants still exists. They don't meet because there are no funds to distribute. But the question is that a temporary situation, or is it a permanent situation? So I think it's a fair question for you to ask, and I think it's a fair question for this council to take up. I don't think we need to decide it tonight, because again, community grants isn't meeting, so there isn't any issue, but should we have something that doesn't meet because there are no funds for it? Community events obviously does meet, still plays an important role. They don't have the budget that they used to. Will they ever have it again? I don't know. So I have no problem with revisiting that issue, although you could flip it around and suggest that, given the reasoning that was put forth about 10 years ago, that we ought to have a sitting council member on the library board, because the library board actually plays a role in the levying of property taxes to support a very important institution, and that is, of course, our library, which is a part of the village, but it is a significant part of the village in terms of its own piece of the overall budget. And yet, due to the way the library laws work in Illinois, the library board is very autonomous. Ultimately, we approve their levy, but there are limitations on what we can do in terms of any line items, or at least that's what's always been represented to me. And we have the power as a council to appoint members to the library board, but if you were to go back in time and ask Commissioner Gilbert, should we have a sitting council member of the library board, he would say absolutely yes. So I would throw that in the mix too, as part of a broader consideration of, should we still have sitting council members on boards and commissions at all, or should we expand it to more? I think that's a fair question. So again, I'm not suggesting that we take that up tonight, but it might be something that, given changed circumstances, might be worth looking at.
Mayor, I have a couple of comments about Commissioner Waldeck's points. The first one that was something he was talking about when he was talking about the liquor issues and folks in town. He said that he'd heard from residents that they were deterred from calling the police department, and I think it's interesting. If he's hearing that from someone, he has the direct access to the village manager and the police chief to let us as a council and as an organization know that, so we can resolve that issue. If it's a one-time incident or if it's a recurring issue, we need to know that so we can resolve that and make that not happen again. As far as the one ask, or the one question that Commissioner Waldeck brought up about the forum of inviting all of the different entities to join in, the question I have then becomes is who's going to arrange that forum? You said it was food for thought, something to consider. I just had this thought tonight. You know, we have our traditional process of creating action items for our village staff to go through and undertake, and over the years, and as we've all known, there's things that we want to do in the village and they're either prioritized or funded or not. This seems like a big enough idea or a big enough issue that if a forum was to be arranged, it would take a considerable amount of staff time to wrangle not only the 7 council members, but then as well as any other elected body. So if there's someone out there that's willing to arrange that and not be staff time from our staff, I think that would be great. But I also think that this type of arrangement would increase our staff load and isn't in line with our current action items. It's funny that we bring that up tonight. As Dave mentioned, the budget's coming out. The action items are part of that discussion as well, and I think that the timing may be suited perfectly to have that discussion during our budget talk and during our action item setup for 2013. But before that, I think that we need to be very careful about where we're getting our information from. I do value the media outlets and the social media outlets in town, but it's very easy to post and write something under an assumed name or under a moniker that may or may not be fact or fiction. So I think we have to be careful about that. But I will suggest to my colleagues, Commissioner Waldeck and anybody, that if they hear of a village department, whether it's police, fire, public works, legal, village manager's office, anywhere, that is not performing their duties in the appropriate way or deterring a resident from using those services, please let one of us know. Please let village staff know so we can take care of that and fix that problem. And as far as suggestions, I'm all for suggestions all the time. I think they're very important, and I think these conversations are good. But sometimes I think we need to use our traditional kind of set of practices as far as coming up with action items and work plans for our staff and our organization.
Well, I agree with that, although this is new business, so I have no problem with it. I think we were disagreeing with that. There's no reason not to be bringing up new ideas. That is the portion of new business. We do like to report out on items of significance, but the actual part of the meeting is new business. So there's no, I don't detract from anyone bringing up. In fact, I encourage people to bring up new business during the new business segment of the meeting. But to your point, Commissioner, we will have an opportunity to prioritize and identify action items for the next year, and we'll be able to do that in a public meeting where we'll all be able to talk about what those items can be and understanding what the reasonable limitations are, what can be done within the span of time allotted and the funds that are available. That's how we end up necessarily prioritizing things with the assistance of staff. So I think we can look at this as a precursor of what we'll be hearing from you during the budget talks.
May I suggest that?
Of course.
My intent was not to turn this into necessarily turn it into a staff item. I brought this up tonight and I said, think about it for, our time off. Suggestions, I mean, this is an issue that keeps being brought up again and again and again with relatively no action. And I think the point I wanted to make was that this isn't necessarily a staff item. Maybe this is an elected official item. Maybe it's something that maybe all of you think, maybe I should get involved. I challenge the library. I challenge the parks. Maybe it's something that we do individually. It's not necessarily something that we have to drag staff into. Maybe we have to, but let's just mull it over a little bit and come up with some ideas. I mean, this is just an idea, getting the thought processes going. Certainly, when we talk about action items, whatever might be actionable on the part of the library, it's important that we coordinate. We know the library's doing something. We know the parks are doing something. We're doing stuff. We need to know what the others are doing and what the public expects and what they know. And as far as the blogosphere and people have come up to me and mentioned these things, so it's not necessarily all blogs and anonymous tips, if you will. So let's not make assumptions there, but it's just something that keeps cropping up and something that I think we can address. And I'd like to do it comprehensively rather than turning it into than pointing at Dave and say, Dave, solve this problem, and get together with your counterparts with the park. And, I've said enough. Let's mull it over. Let's think about it and see if there's something here that we can attach, that we can do something about.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rankin.
I'll just keep it brief, but I think it's important for the public to know that I'm fully aware that the Park District, the library, we've all read the information that people are concerned about the homeless, and I know there's efforts with all those organizations to try to tackle it. It may not be on the front page of the newspaper, but I know that everyone has heard the concerns of the public and they're making their own efforts. They may not be, in a public report, but I am confident that everyone is doing their share to address it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Newstead.
Mayor, I just have a report out if you're ready for that now, or we can wait till later. Tonight is my sad duty to extend the Village Council's and the Village of Downers Grove's deepest sympathy and condolences after the passing of a longtime Downers Grove resident and business owner, Betty Jane Boyd, a true community advocate and partner. Betty Jane Boyd, known by family, friends, and customers as BJ, lost her battle with cancer this past Sunday. BJ owned and operated Consider It Done, one of downtown Downers Grove's most treasured shops. It was not uncommon to walk into her store and be greeted by BJ by name without even seeing her because the shop was so busy. Her store was the type of place where neighbors met and friendships were formed. BJ always greeted her customers with a huge smile, and she had a spirit of community that took her beyond her shop, which is loved by so many. BJ was involved in so many ways as a member of the Downers Grove Chamber of Commerce and as a board member on the Downtown Management Corporation, and those are just a few ways she gave back to our community. I, as some of my colleagues, are fortunate enough to have worked with BJ on the Downtown Management Board of Directors, and I'm certain that that board is better because of her time there. BJ led by example and helped create and advertise some of Downers Grove's favorite events, like the Fine Arts Festival, the Gingerbread event in downtown, the Ice Sculpture event, so many great things that we've all come to know and love. BJ gave 100% to everything she worked on, and the outcomes are extremely impressive. BJ will be missed by all, but mostly by her family, Ken, her husband, her son Nick, and her daughter Annie. To the Boyd family, please know we hold you in our thoughts and prayers, and may God bless BJ and the entire Boyd family.
Thank you, Commissioner. And BJ and her family are in our thoughts and prayers. Her store was quickly a fixture in our downtown. Her inviting personality and kind spirit were enjoyed by all. She was a leader in our business community and was a tireless supporter of not-for-profit organizations. She left us way too soon, and she will be sorely missed, but remembered by all for a very long time because she accomplished one of those rare things that was leaving the world around her a little bit better than when she found it. So, well said, Commissioner. For my own part, just a few things. First of all, speaking of our police force, I want to congratulate their efforts in conjunction with the community. As I'm sure a number of folks have read, there were a number of individuals that were arrested and charged recently with a series of burglaries committed in Downers Grove, and it was really a perfect situation where the community alert system led to information that led to their identification and arrest, and after some terrific police work, those individuals were in fact charged, and I just want to congratulate our police force for doing their job. And I think we oftentimes read about things that happen. Well, the reason why you're reading about them is because it shows that the police are actually doing the outstanding job that we expect of them. And in particular, I want to thank Detective Jeremy Thayer for his efforts in that role. I know he was only one of many, but again, kudos on some terrific police work. With respect to the meeting last week, I just want to clear the air a little bit. Yes, it is unusual for us to cancel a meeting, but the circumstances were hardly nefarious, and I just want to make sure there was any suggestion that somehow Mr. Fieldman and I got together in a smoke-filled room and canceled a meeting. No. That's how things get started. It was very simple. I mean, yes, the ordinance reads that we shall meet at a certain time, we shall have an agenda. But that doesn't necessarily compel a meeting. What it means is if you do meet, you must meet at a certain time, because that in place, because that is what the residents come to expect as part of participatory government. And yes, you must have an agenda, it must be published, there are rules to these things, as they say. But I'm a fan of, if government doesn't have a good reason to meet, they probably shouldn't, because again, usually no good end comes of it. And the bottom line was that because of some efficiencies that our staff has achieved in terms of getting contracts bid and approved earlier and earlier in the season as they should be, we just found ourselves with not a compelling agenda. And so the idea was, well, if we don't need to meet and have lofty conversations about undefined issues, then perhaps we shouldn't. I certainly wish Springfield would follow that. If they don't have something to do, then don't meet, because usually something bad comes out of it. One of our former colleagues is often quoted as saying is that He quotes someone else who I'm not going to remember who it is now, but there's man knows no greater fear than when the legislature is in session. So if we didn't have an agenda, and that meeting was probably a good thing. It wasn't as though there was something that was on the agenda that we were trying to avoid voting on. Obviously, you know, we took care of business tonight, and the question always is, if we need to do the people's business, we will do the people's business, and that's why sometimes we meet on election night, and we meet in proximity to holidays, because it's driven by the need to get things done, not any other agendas. So, and in fact, I think in terms of even public comment, it worked out that we had a coffee with the council, so anyone who wanted to come and speak to us had that opportunity last Saturday, so we didn't even skip out on that. But to your point, Commissioner, since it was somewhat of an unusual occurrence, you know, perhaps we can plan for those things better, just to better meet the expectations of our residents. That's a fair observation.
My point was just, it looks like we might have a little wording problem with our municipal code, and I thought maybe we could.
Could be an interpretation problem, but
we don't want
six
people
of
to
this
get the wrong
happening to the other.
interpretation.
No, I understand. I understand.
I had no problem having the week off. You could see I was working in between anyways.
To my point. To my point. Idle hands do the devil's work. And with that, I just once again want to congratulate Alan Gyrick on his long and tenured service to our community, and congratulate and thank his family for allowing us to have him during that period of time. I don't have anything further, Commissioner Rankin.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure I got to announce something. I think you were moving to adjourn, and I never announced my announcement.
Oh, I'm sorry, by all means.
Okay, sorry about that. Tomorrow, the League of Women Voters is having a pension reform workshop, I guess, over at Fire Station 2. It's at 7 o'clock. State Senator Christine Rodano, Larry Spivak, who is the Regional Director of Council 31 and the President of the Illinois Labor History Society, will be there. Richard Ingram, who is the Executive Director of the Teachers Retirement System, and Hans Zygmunt, who is from the Governor's Budget Office, will be there to do presentations about the different pension systems and some suggestions for reform. It should be interesting. And they're looking for community members to come out and participate. They also asked me to announce that they are going to have a candidate forum on September 25th at 7 o'clock right here in Village Hall for the District 2 candidates for DuPage County Board and for the Forest Preserve District. So great way to see who's on the ballot and hear from them and ask questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Want to leave anybody out? Anything else?
Sorry about that.
No, my mistake. But finally, I just want to say that I do encourage everyone to utilize the new business portion of the meeting. I know this went on for a while, but I think it's not only beneficial to us, but also to everyone that we serve to hear these discussions happen live and in the open. When people have good ideas, they never shine more brightly than when they're done in public. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Schnell? Aye. Commissioner Durkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Rankin?
Aye.
Commissioner Neustadt?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. We are